So this is the fun bit. From all the stuff that you've done previously, you should have a fairly firm idea about what it is you want to do, and more importantly, from a business perspective, why it is you want to do that as well. Now, when it comes to picking a name, there is some kind of guidelines, rules of thumb, as it were, as to kind of what you can do. Now, the first option that you kind of need to consider is whether, as a freelancer, you decide to operate under your own name, or whether you want to pick a brand name. For me, as you can hopefully see from the website and so on, that I operate under my own name. So I will literally call it Dan White, or sometimes I will call it Dan White Marketing if I'm sort of being official. That has certain advantages, but also has certain disadvantages. The advantages of that is that it really helps me to invest in what is my personal brand. So if someone puts in Dan White Marketing into Google, I pop up. If someone recommends me, they know their name. That is the thing that a potential client or a would-be client is investing in, because they will hopefully look at me and understand that there is a degree of expertise there and that I can do a good job. On the other hand, you might want to consider picking a name which isn't almost anything. So you are setting up a business which essentially is a brand. It's not you. Now, that can work really well, but by doing that, you're essentially investing in something which is starting from nothing. If you literally just pick a word out of the dictionary, and that's what most digital marketing agencies do, you will find that that has no inherent value attached to it. So you have to start from the ground up. You haven't always got that head start on people knowing you. You can just look like a faceless business, which no one really knows who you are or what you do. So it requires a lot more legwork, as it were, to market it, to build up a reputation. Now, with both of these things, this has limitations. Now, this is why I was saying in the startup section that it is really important to understand what it is you want to aim for ultimately when it comes to freelancing. For me personally, I don't want to grow an agency. I don't want to have a big team under me. And if I was to, having an agency called Dan White or Dan White Marketing just makes no sense whatsoever. I'm the individual, it's me. If I drop out of digital marketing, the business stops. It doesn't carry on in some kind of legacy. So there is that limitation that if you decide to operate under your own name, you are only going to scale as much as you can scale as an individual. So if it is a case that you just want a more lifestyle business, just want to, have a few extra clients here and there and keep things relatively small, you're not sort of going for super big agency growth, it makes sense to almost keep it from an individual level. That's not to say that you can't pick a brand name, but there tends to be more advantages in having a name that's personal than not. On the other hand, you can probably see where this is going. If you have a brand name, that means you can invest as much as possible into that brand, so that ultimately, if your goal is to bring in hundreds of millions of pounds of revenue, or grow a massive team, or grow an agency, or have multiple offices, then yes, that brand works perfectly because it can scale with you. Hypothetically, you could also start with your name and then switch over to a brand, but you are essentially rebranding in that stage. So from a who knows about you, you are taking a massive step back. So this is why it's so important to almost establish this early on. However, with either one of those routes, you do need to consider a few key factors which can massively influence as to kind of what name you decide upon. The first you just need to double check is that there's no one with your name or brand name who is going to be a competitor. And you'd be amazed at the number of people who don't seem to do this. So literally have a quite thorough Google as to if there are any other digital marketers, particularly freelance digital marketers, who share your name, who are also doing the same thing. Or equally, if there are any businesses or otherwise who have your same brand name. Aside from being potentially conflict on a legal basis, it's just going to confuse people. And certainly from a Google perspective, you want to be the top result for when someone puts in your name, not your competitor. Ultimately, changing your name is actually quite an extreme example of not having this conflict come up. But it might be a case of you shorten your name, or you make a point of attaching an additional word to it. So in this instance, effectively, my full name is Daniel James White. However, I just always abbreviate that down to Dan White, and that's why sometimes I attach Dan White Marketing, because if you put in Dan White, there are a huge number of Dan Whites in the world. So that's why if you put in Dan White Marketing, normally I'm the person that comes up. Again, from a brand name perspective, do the same thing. Number two is that particularly if you're going down a brand route, you need to be picking a word which is just easy to understand. Obviously, being in the digital marketing space, there are a huge number of agencies and tools and bits of software out there which have words which just don't make any sense whatsoever, but they are easy to read and write and say. So if you can, try and keep something to a short 1 syllable, 2 syllable words rather than something that is really long, and something which just, is easy to pronounce as well. So again, particularly from a brand level, you are going to be coming up against competitors, but if you can try and find something which just is easy to understand when you look at it, you're onto a big winner there. Third and finally, with both options, is that you need to be checking that the domain name for your brand, your business, is available. You'd be amazed at the number of people who get this far. Literally, they have done all their branding, they've got the business officially registered, and it's like, sorry, the domain name isn't available. It's taken by 100 other people with all very similar names. Check that out as soon as you possibly can once you've decided upon it, because you might find that you've either got to opt for a potentially substandard domain name, or ultimately it might come back, you find the great domain name for yourself, and therefore you have to change other aspects of the business. That's just a bit of a given, but again, as I say, it's a lot of the considerations which some people won't go into when deciding on what their brand name should be. Weirdly, it's quite a frustrating process as you go through it, but once you find that domain name and once you've kind of got the name mapped out and it makes sense and it's kind of easy to read and it obviously fits in with your business objective, then yes, you are off to a damn good start to take things forward.